Hello and welcome to Sex, Drugs, and Everything Else. I'm your host, Alex Trust. How you feeling this week, people? Well, I've been doing a lot of work, a lot of research, and one of the things I found out about podcasts is the best day to release your podcast is the same day every week or every 2 weeks, however often you put your podcast out. Well, I have been slacking on that, and I'm sorry because it's already Sunday, and I should have had episode 7, which this is, welcome to episode 7, published back on Tuesday or Wednesday, because those are the days I usually publish. Tuesday specifically, but sometimes it's Wednesday. So I have to apologize to you, dear listener, because I've made you wait for episode 7, and it's going to be a good one, just like they all are. So what do you think we're going to talk about this week, kids? Could it be something in the title? Sex or drugs? Not this week. We've done that so far, and I'm going to do much more on that as well. No, this week it's going to be part of everything else. We're going to talk about a new concept that my wife and I made up our very own selves. We're going to talk about charity and how it should not be a bad word. We're going to talk about changing the world with compassion, empathy, and giving, along with the technology that's going to help us do it. We're going to talk about changing the world with, well, our new friends, artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about all that over 2 segments, and then we're going to do a little bit of henchman, like we usually do, and then I still have to find a piece of music to give you, but I'll give you something, or a poem, or some spoken word. I'll give you something. I'll try and make it music. But we are going to do something because I love that portion of the show, because I love getting unknown artists out there, including myself. So, are you ready to go? Because I'm ready to go. Here we go. Okay. Here's segment 1. First thing we're going to talk about is the concept that I'm just going to say I because it's easier, but my wife and I came up with it. It's called person-to-person charity. We have a Facebook group dedicated to it. It's called Person-to-Person, a Pay It Forward Challenge. Now, it is based on the idea of pay it forward, which, as I'm sure all of you know by now, it's become part of the popular lexicon. Pay it forward means doing some genuinely kind and big act for a person, and all you ask for in return is for that person to do 3 generous, important acts for 3 other people. And then those 3 other people do for 3 other people, and on and on. It's exponential. So you end up affecting the whole world. Now, we've taken that idea and we've modified it a little bit. I like to call it, and this is what I came up with, this is my idea, I call it person-to-person guerrilla charity. Guerrilla as in like guerrilla warfare, because it's the people's charity. It's something that everyone can do. It's something that everyone can take part of. You won't recognize the people doing it. They don't wear uniforms. They don't wear name tags. They don't look like anything in particular, because they're just regular, normal people who do good things in order to make the world a better place. Now, so I call it guerrilla charity, and I really think it still is pay it forward, because When I do a good deed for a person and they thank me, I say, "You're welcome, but there's no need for thanks. Just pay it forward." And I tell them they don't even have to do that. They don't have to pay it forward to 3 people. They don't have to pay it forward to 10 people. They don't have to pay it forward to any people. Because when you give, it's already a two-way street. They've already given me something by receiving my help, by accepting it. Because I'll tell you, I have been trying to do this for only 3 months, and I've gotten plenty of people that refused my help, and a couple of them got downright angry at me for offering it. Most people took it, and were thankful for it. And like I said, I made sure that it was a caveat that they owed nothing in return, but that if they wanted to, if they felt love in their heart, if they felt giving and compassion in their heart, to then pay it forward and help someone else when they can, because that's the important part of person-to-person charity. You can't help everyone. In fact, you can't help anyone if you can't help yourself. So don't feel bad if you see someone that needs help and you just can't help them. Like, for example, I was late for a doctor's appointment the other day, and I had to be there. Couldn't reschedule. And I saw someone on the side of the road, and it was obviously their car was broken. They probably just needed a jump or something easy, and I could have helped them with that, or, a tire change, but I just didn't have time. I had to get to this doctor's appointment. It was crucial. So don't feel bad if you can't help. But if you can help and you want to help, please, for God's sake, help. Giving, like I said, is a two-way street. When you give to someone, you receive just as much as they do, because you get what's called a serotonin dump, just like they do. It's basically the happy chemical. And there is nothing, don't let them fool you. We're going to talk about this later, but don't let them fool you. There is nothing wrong with feeling good about helping someone. You should not feel guilty about feeling good. Charity is not a bad word. Charity is one of the best words. Now, what I want to tell you next is charity, person-to-person charity, does not have to be monetary. It can be anything. Hold on, I'm going to light a cigarette. Sorry, I still smoke. Maybe a little unprofessional, but you know what? Chappelle still does it. Leary did it for a long time. So Hunter S. Thompson wouldn't do anything without a cigarette in his mouth. So if you have a problem with it, take it and you can shove it. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to shove it, but yeah, you can keep your opinion. You're just to yourself on that one. I'm going to smoke and I'm going to cough. Anyway, person-to-person charity, guerrilla charity, does not have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be, you see some guy with a sign and you give him $1 or $5 or whatever. Or it doesn't even have to be monetary, like giving to the United Way or any charity like that. Those charities are great. You can still give to them too. That's the basic model of charity, okay? But with the United Way, with the Goodwill, whoever, you don't really know where your money and effort is going. I mean, it's probably going somewhere good, but you don't know exactly where it's going. There was a scandal, I don't know, a decade or 2 decades ago, about the CEO of, I believe it was the United Way, embezzling and taking much too high of a salary for the CEO of a fragging charity. You know what I mean? So you just don't know. You can't know, because all you're doing is writing a check and then saying, there you go. Do something good with it. Help some of these, these weak links in our chain. And that's not how it should be. person-to-person charity is different because it can be a skill. It can be listening to someone when they need to bitch. It can be a smile. That can be a game changer. Well, once we get these masks off anyway, just smiling at someone and have them smile back. You can see it. It lights up their faces. Just complimenting someone. My friend Greg told me a story about how he saw these 3 little old ladies sitting on a park bench one Friday morning, and he knew that his mom always got her hair done on Friday morning so she could look nice and feel nice for the weekend. And he recognized the way the women were acting and the way their hair looked, that they had all just gotten their hair done. So he went up to them and told them all how nice they looked, and it made their day, just complimenting someone. And it doesn't have to be, my friend Greg he's a salesman, so he went up to the ladies and was like, "Hey ladies, how are you today? Man, you're looking great. You just got your hair done, didn't you? Blah, 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 blah." He's a little bit of a cheeseball. I love him. I love him to death, but he's a little bit of a cheeseball because he's a born salesman. It doesn't have to be like that. You can compliment someone in any way that you're comfortable. You can, if someone just does something simple like holds a door for you, say thank you. For Pete's sake, say thank you. If someone right now with the COVID going on, if someone stays 6 feet away from you, or if they're too close and they see it and they move back on purpose, say, "Hey, I really appreciate that." Whether you believe in COVID being dangerous or not, just compliment them. Say, "Hey, I saw what you did. I appreciate that. Thank you for, the social distancing. It's important. Even if you believe it's not important, it doesn't matter. It's the compliment that matters." I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying compliments can go a long way. So, it does not have to be monetary. And what's great about person to person is you can do it right from your house. You don't even have to go out. You don't. I myself have a lot of social anxiety, and so I don't really go out a whole lot. I don't meet a lot of people in person, and I never have. Not because of COVID. COVID hasn't changed my life very much because I didn't go out a whole lot before. But what I realized 3 months ago when COVID started around March was that we have this technology now called the Internet, but specifically social media, where we can communicate with anybody at any time in any place. I now have podcast listeners in 12 different countries. So thank you, everyone in those 12 countries. And once again, thank you, Germany. Apparently, you like me, Germany, because you're 37% of my listeners. So thank you. Thank you, U.S. You're a big part of it, too. But there's Denmark. There's Chile. There's Switzerland. There's a bunch of them. I'm sorry for the ones that I missed, but I can never remember them all. Ireland, the UK, a lot of them. I can't remember all of them, but 12. There's 12 of them so far. So I can talk to anybody, anytime. And when I realized that, I started going online specifically looking for people who had similar ideas to mine and contacting them not only through social media, but I've been talking to them on, video chat and stuff like that. I talked for 2 hours to this gentleman in Australia the other night. I called Nigeria quite a bit, but that was trying to help someone with their schooling there, a young man there. But that's another thing that I found. I found that if I looked for people in need on the internet, I could find people that needed help and then help them. And a couple of times it was monetary, but they both paid me back and they both paid it forward as well. But I did things like helped a young lady get her car fixed. I didn't have the money to get her car fixed, but what I did was she was living in the Baton Rouge area, and so I got on the internet and Googled mechanics in Baton Rouge, in the Baton Rouge area, and I called every single one of them until I found one shop that agreed to do the labor for free. So all she had to do was come up with the money for parts. And that got her car fixed, you know. She's an Uber driver, so that was very important for her as her livelihood. But it doesn't have to be monetary. I helped a young man get a job. I helped several other people with public information that got them unemployment that they just didn't know about, but I did. I helped someone with an eviction with just pure information, pure public knowledge. They just didn't know how to look up. And so I looked it up for them. I called the sheriff's department. I called, the Department of Housing, whatever that's called. I forget. But you can do things like that. And I found them all on Facebook, basically. Facebook's my favorite. Instagram. Sorry, once again, maybe a little unprofessional, but my wife just chimed in there. She's at work, and doesn't matter what I'm saying to you people, she comes first. So I messaged with her for a moment. That's why we paused, and why you heard that little chime. But anyway, so you can find people to help. You just have to look for it. It doesn't matter if it's in the, in person, or if it's on social media, or wherever and whenever you can help and you want to help, you should help. And I think you should let people know that you've done it. Now, this is where some people are going to disagree with me. This is where we need to redefine charity, and it is kind of a bad word in our society, because basically what we're doing with charity, I think that's why we have these big organizations that do it, because we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to deal with the weakest links in our society, which is basically what charity has been up until this point. Now, we don't have enough charity to help all of our weakest links, okay? And I'm not going to keep calling them our weakest links. I'm going to start calling them people in need. And the reason they're in need is because our resources are misallocated. I'm not going to go on and on about this, but it is true. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but about 1% of the population of human beings own 99% of the property, hold 99% of the money, and have 99% of the power of governance and lawmaking and corporations and what we buy and how we buy it. And 99% of the population, 99% of human beings own 1% of the property and have 1% of the money and have 1% of the power and governance. And that is a misallocation of resources. I could go on for an hour about why it happened historically and evolutionarily, but that's not what the show is about. So, charity has become a bad word because we don't like having to help people. But and don't get me started, rich people especially don't like to help people because they think, well, I can do it, I did it, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, and made $1 million, why should I give my hard-earned money away? Well, I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you very simple. I call it the hammer theory. Say there's a man or woman that owns a hammer factory, and that hammer factory makes that person a millionaire. Now, how did he become a millionaire? We're just going to call him a he for now, okay? He had to have workers to make those hammers. Hell, he had to have workers to build the factory first. Then he had to have workers build those hammers. He had to have people to distribute those hammers. He had to have people to buy those hammers that needed hammers. So without the society he's living in, he would never have become a millionaire. So he not only actually owes the weaker link or the people that are really in need, he owes them monetarily, but he owes them logically and morally. Because without them, if he was just by himself, he could make as many hammers as he wanted, but he'd just have a big pile of hammers, and that's it. So, take it how you will, but that's what I believe. And that's why I believe we need to do this person to person. We need to do it. We can change the world simply with compassion, empathy, giving. If you do all those things with love in your heart, if you really mean it, telling people about it isn't a bad thing. Like, the reason we've been taught not to sing our own praises, not to tell people that you've given or you've helped, is because you're supposed to be humble. Religion especially teaches us that. You must be humble. You must be humble because not being humble is a sin. Well, I say, if you're doing it with compassion, empathy, and love, it's not a sin. It does two things. It does two very important things by telling people what you've done. It raises awareness and helps other people understand it's okay to give person to person and how to. It encourages them to do it. And the second reason is because it gives me good ideas. And not just me, but me and everyone else who wants to give. Because I start to run out of ideas, you know. The more I look for it, the more I see it. You know, people in need. But sometimes I don't know how to help. So if someone were to come along and describe a situation that I'd been in and I didn't know how to help, and they figured out how to help in a way that I could have, that's golden. That's the golden ticket right there, man. That's awesome. So we need to start thinking of charity as a lifesaver, as a society, as a boon to society, as something that will save our race, our human race. Because, make no mistake, there's another race a-coming, and it's called artificial intelligence, and we're going to have to get along with it. And I believe we will. I'm not going to go too much into it because I did a segment on AI already. But we need to make sure that we redefine what we think of charity. It's power. It's absolute power. Because the more you can raise up the 99%, the faster 100% of us will be so much better off. There'll be a reallocation of resources. 100% of the population will own 100% of the property and money and power. There'll be self-governance on a smaller scale the way it was supposed to be. Because don't think that I'm preaching socialism here. I am not. Socialism and communism did not work. And for some very good reasons that I'm not going to go into because I hate politics and it would take, like I said, an hour of history lesson that is quite frankly boring Not boring to me, but boring probably to most of my listeners. So if we can redefine what charity means and make it not a bad word, make it something that is applauded, like, yeah, I helped jump someone's car today. Good job, man. Good job. Like, maybe even if you're late, 5 minutes late for work, and your boss is like, what the heck? I told you can't be late. And you were like, listen, the reason I was late was because I stopped and I gave someone a jump. Their battery was dead. And as long as assholes don't take advantage of that and lie about it, your boss will eventually be the type of person that will say, oh, okay, no worries. You were helping. You were paying it forward. Not a big deal. And he'll pay it forward, and he'll cut you a break. You know, he won't write you up or be mad at you and make you, take the garbage out or whatever. So, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we can pull it off? Because I think if we use compassion, empathy, and giving, and we use the medium of social media to spread this message to everyone in the world, we can see real change within our lifetimes. Prejudice, gone. Poverty, well, probably not gone, but being worked on. Shelter for everyone having shelter. Did you know that if you buy an industrial 3D printer, you can take almost any substance, sand or polymers or anything, and prefabricate houses for $4,500? 350 square foot houses, which is about, a little one bedroom, to 650, square foot houses, which is a small 2-bedroom, for $4,500. And the more the technology takes off, the cheaper it'll be. That's one of the things that my wife and I are going to work on, starting a business selling those prefab houses so we can fund giving them away. Because it's not just, I'm not talking about just like cheap little crappy trailers. You can make these into anything. You can make them into really nice little houses. All you need is the property. And, if we can make enough money or get enough money in charity to do that, everyone can have a home. Everyone. With the prefab homes, you power them with solar. You can stay off the electrical grid. You can power them with partial wind power. Stay off that grid. You can collect rainwater to use as gray water for showers, stuff like that. It's really cool technology. We are living in a time of miracles. And the only thing I ever hear about anymore is, oh, what about Orange Man, the president? And what about Old Man, his whatever it is, the guy who's running against him? That's all I hear is negativity about politics and about COVID and about this and that. It's time to get positive, people. It's time to start bending the rules of society so we can friggin' evolve. Okay? Now, it takes a very long time to evolve, Tim, doesn't it? Well, yes, traditional biological evolution does take a very, 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 very long time. But guess what doesn't? Technological and social evolution. They can happen very quickly. Look at the difference between before the light bulb and after. Within 150 years, we went from the light bulb to, if you believe we did, landing on the moon, the internet, finding proof that there's another dimension sitting right next to ours, a micron away, actual proof of that. These phones that we have in our hands, when I was growing up, I still had a rotary phone and a 13-inch black and white TV, and that was in the 80s. And now in 2020, I can do absolutely anything from my phone up and to talk to anybody, communicate with anybody in the world, anywhere, listen to any song, watch any movie or show, read any book. And we have the audacity to say that our world is crumbling? How dare we? If anything, it's crumbling because we're taking this stuff for granted. We're not being appreciative of it. We're just thinking about the next cool thing we can buy. Oh, I've got a 50-inch HD TV, and man, it sure is cool. I've never had anything as cool as that. You know, I think mine's about 50 inches, and I told you, I used to have a 13-inch black and white with the antennas. But most people, they've got a 50-inch HD TV with, you know, all the bells and whistles, and all they can think is, man, I wish I had a 90-inch TV, because I know my neighbor, he has a 90-inch TV, and why shouldn't I have one? We're trying to fill our souls, the holes in us. You don't have to call it a soul, you can call it whatever you want. The hole that's inside of us, that we have this, we're lost. We're lost as a society because we've lost our purpose. And it's not because we've lost religion. Part of it is because we've kept religion. It's more because the 1% have fear-mongered us into believing that if we don't do what they tell us, that the terrorists are going to kill us. First it was the terrorists. The terrorists were going to get us. I never was scared of any terrorists. They weren't coming to Toledo, Ohio. George Bush Jr. or George W. just wanted to consolidate his power, and he got elected the second time because of it. Now, Orange Man is doing the same thing with COVID. Right off the bat, he said, oh, COVID's fake. COVID's not real. And that made perfect sense to me because I think his regime is the one that either, I don't know if they released it, but they certainly took advantage of fear-mongering us into being so scared that people will fight you, will try and fight you if you don't have a mask on, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because if you don't have a mask on, why would they want to get close to you? But I've seen it happen. I've experienced it. A man got so mad at me when they made it mandatory to put masks on, which I hadn't heard. It was just the day before at 2 o'clock. I hadn't heard. So at 6 in the morning the next day, I'm at Kroger's, and this guy freaks out on me. Freaks out. And then when I say to him, I'm calm. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in getting angry anymore. So I'm calm and rational, and I say, hey, no problem, buddy. I will back away from you. He starts coming toward me and saying these vile things to me, like, why am I so stupid? Why am I such a retard that I don't have my mask on? Do I want to kill us all? He asked me, but he's coming toward me with his fist clenched the whole time. And I'm just backing up the whole time, not because I'm scared of him, but because I don't, unless he were actually to start, trying to hurt me, I'm not going to involve myself in any kind of violence. There's never a good reason for violence, except to defend yourself. And in that case, the violence was perpetrated by someone who had no reason to be violent. No matter what it was, there was always a better solution. So there's always a better solution than violence. Anyway, that's a whole different subject. So I've seen people be so scared. They've made us so scared, the media and the government has made us so scared that we don't want to leave our houses. We don't want to be near people. I think people talk about the internet separating us. It's what's kept us together through this whole COVID thing. We've been able to communicate and still tell each other that we love each other and that we're, there for each other. Where I've heard some people say, I haven't seen my grandma in 3 months because I'm afraid to go over there because I don't want to give her anything. You know what I mean? They are separating us physically on purpose and then saying the internet is separating us. Just the opposite, my friends. The internet, social media is going to save us if we use it correctly. If we stop using it for bullshit like they do on Twitter, just talking about politics and bullshit racism and all that stuff. But if you use it in a positive, powerful way, like I'm on LinkedIn and I have seen nothing but positive messages on LinkedIn. Maybe it's because it's professionals. I don't know. But not all these professionals are rich people, because I am they don't call it friends on that. But I have over 500 people in my network in that, and none of them are anything but positive, and very few of them have a whole lot of money because they're on there trying to make connections. LinkedIn is great. Facebook can be great. I stay away from the negative. I go by the old rule. If there's not something nice to say about someone's post, if it really makes me mad and it's really ignorant, usually 99% of the time, I just ignore it. I go past it, say nothing. If it's something really horrible, I will engage them, but I never argue. I only use fact and logic, and I never, ever get angry. They get angry because I use fact and logic, and they can't defeat it because fact and logic are irrefutable. But anyway, point being, one more time, person to person, guerrilla charity. Pay it forward, people. We can change the world with compassion, empathy, giving, and social media. Yeah, and social media. And the upcoming AI revolution. If we can get AI that at the very least pities us, but at the very best has compassion for us, they'll help us save us. They'll help us save us. They'll help us make this a better world. We don't need them to. If all of us got together and spoke in one voice with compassion, empathy, and giving, we could change the world right now, because if even 50% of us said in one voice, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to take this political bullshit. We're not going to take the electoral college that keeps the popular vote from actually working. We're not going to take, what do they call those, lobbyists, putting politicians in the pockets of big business. We're not going to take that anymore. They will have to listen. Now, if we could get 99% of us to do that, they would have no choice. There is nothing they could do. Their money, not 1 cent of it, would help them stop us. And it would be the world's first peaceful, truly peaceful revolution. And it can be done on social media. I guarantee it. Within 3 generations, we could have damn near paradise. Now, it's not going to be a utopia. Not everyone is going to get a mansion, and not everyone is going to get a Ferrari. But who the hell needs those things? There's not a single person on earth that couldn't live comfortably and quite happily on $250,000 a year. If everyone had about $250,000 a year, they would have 1 nice house, 2 nice cars, they would have an educational system to properly teach their children, they would have security, they would have everything they needed. But we have, what they say, by 2029, we're going to have the first trillionaire? What one person needs $1 trillion? In fact, what person needs $1 billion or $60 billion or even $60 million? No one person needs that. If you want to make that much money, make it. But then give it to the people that really need it. Us ditch diggers have done a lot for you, because, alright, take Bill Gates and then apply him to the hammer factory analogy. He wouldn't have a dime if there weren't people to use his software. Not a dime. He'd just be a nerd in glasses somewhere programming in a friggin' basement or a garage still. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Either that or he'd just have a bunch of software sitting in boxes, a bunch of microchips and stuff. But without the people to use them, without the people to buy them, without the people to make them, he would not be a billionaire. Now, he's not a great example because he and his wife actually do a lot of good. But quite frankly, I don't think he should keep more than, I'd say just to be on the safe side, more than 50 million. Because he probably does have to protect himself, because people probably after his money, they want to kidnap his kids and stuff like that. So I'd say someone like Bill Gates, he can keep about 50 million. But besides that, no one needs it. No one needs that much. Let's reallocate this wealth, and we can do it. We can do it, come together, and actually really do it. In our generation, okay, now I'm going to make one more important point before I go, because I've now been talking for over a half an hour about this. What about the people that are just assholes, Tim? The people that want to keep their wealth and don't care about anybody else? Well, guess what, people? If the majority of us actually come together with compassion and empathy and giving and speak with one voice, guess what's going to happen? We're going to be able to do things that the 1% can't with all their money and all their power. Say you take 10 million people and put them on the problem of poverty. They're going to solve that, okay? Especially if you get the right people. Take 100 million people and have them work on the religious issues. They are going to solve them. If we do what I'm talking about doing, if we come together, all the other problems will fall in line. And guess what will happen to the people that are assholes, the people that don't want to participate? We will breed them out. They won't be able to do, even with all their money and their power, they won't be able to do what we can do. So within several generations, they'll just be gone. They'll die of natural deaths. Let them take their money with them. We don't need it. All right. I'm going to leave it there because what we do need is love and maybe brevity as well. So that's going to be sections 1 and 2. Next section coming up, we're going to listen to a little music and then we're going to read a chapter of Henchman. The Henchman, by the way, it's called now. All right, people, coming up next on Sex, Drugs, and Everything Else. The Henchman, Chapter 7. Research into metapowers need to be regulated, safeguarded in some way, or else where would it end? We'd just face horrors that shouldn't even exist, that were made. Something needed to be done about it. Could you imagine such creatures on our streets? I'm one of the bad guys, and even I know this isn't right. Make you rethink the boundaries of who's good and who's not, who's just and who's right. I don't pretend to have the answers, but I know what's wrong, and that place was wrong, and I'm glad it's gone. Even with Panthera's high-tech medical regeneration setup, I was still out of commission for a while. I spent my time divided by being kept company by David and then other henchmen that stopped in to visit, and more surprisingly, by extended visits from Pussycat. At first, I thought it was just gratitude on her part. I had saved her life after all, and I'd been injured in the process. So even when she was flirting with me, outrageously by the way, I thought it was all just in fun. I really thought she was just being nice to me. Little did I know a whole new chapter was about to start in my life as a henchman. As I think I briefly mentioned before, life as a henchman is not just perilous when out on missions. Every day, life in a supervillain's secret lair is rife with danger, from morning till, well, all the damn time. Haven't you ever heard the phrase, evil never sleeps? Well, I'm here to tell you, it's literally true. We henchmen are a pretty tight-knit bunch. We have to be, what with the nature of our jobs and all. But that doesn't mean there aren't a few bad apples and ladder climbers. There is backstabbing and betrayal around every corner, if it's thought there's something to be gained from it. Most of us try to watch the next guy's back, work as a unit, make the whole team look good. Others, however, are only out for, well, number one. This is no different than what you'll find in any other workplace, from a corporate office to a fast food restaurant. With us, however, things tended to be taken to extremes, and the outcomes were a bit more deadly and permanent than in the normal world. Everything from sabotaging equipment, to starting vicious rumors, to just outright snitching people out to the boss was par for the course. You learn to be careful whom you trusted with your personal lives and your secrets. We flourished in an environment of paranoia, but no matter how much energy was put into fueling the plots of these devious few, we knew, and we always knew, there would always be another trap ready to be strung, or sprung, however you want to say it. It quickly became my norm, my ability to adapt to walking such a razor's edge, putting me ahead of the curve. I could outthink and outmaneuver my opponents, and so would usually come out unscathed when I'd become the target of such a nefarious plot. More deadly yet to a henchman was the most central aspect of all, our lives, the boss. Supervillains have never been known for or considered as the most stable of people. If you think it's terrifying to see an 8-foot-tall half-panther man tear the door from a bank vault with his bare hands, just imagine having to deal with such raw power at the dinner table or on a late-night trip to the bathroom while you're still half asleep, not knowing if your boss is going to tear your head from your body and play hacky sack with it, or if you're lucky, maybe just rip off your arm and slap you around. Can you make that kind of luck? Can you make that kind of jumpy transition? I once saw Panthera throw a fellow henchman through not 3, but 4 walls and into a plasma reactor where he was instantly vaporized. I'm sure this trip through the walls had killed him first, but to be so completely eradicated from existence? For a living being to become subatomic matter in a matter of moments? That must have sucked. So we not only lived in paranoia of our fellow henchmen, but in mortal fear of the physical rages and schizophrenic moods of our employer. Why, you ask, would anyone put up with such crazy odds? You have to remember, this is a job that required you to fight superheroes, whose job it was to kill. A little danger in the home life didn't seem so weird compared to that. Plus, you have to remember, on the side of evil and all that, you know, we're the bad guys. We didn't exactly love it, but it was to be expected, I guess. So when David expressed his concern over Pussycat's visits, telling me over a game of cards one day that people were starting to talk, I immediately took it seriously. This was a very delicate situation I found myself in. Not only had my actions on the last mission been creative and badass, which got me the attention of my boss, hence elevating my status, hence bringing me more power, hence gaining me the jealousy of my peers, hence more enemies. Also, though, I had saved my boss's girlfriend and second in command, which also brought me all of the previous things, but with the added perk and danger of Pussycat's attention. It was a perk because P-Cat was smoking hot, and as it turns out, a lot of fun to talk to and be around. She was wicked smart and devilishly funny. She put a smile on my face and a heart-on in my pants. I'm not being funny. She put a smile on my face and she made my pants tighter. It was a danger for the obvious reasons. Her boyfriend and my boss was a terrifyingly powerful giant half-man, half-beast, prone to homicidal rages at the best of times. Just imagine what would happen if someone told him his girl was hanging out with one of his employees all the time in her skimpy little costume, all alone in my hospital room, which was something likely to happen now that I had built up such a reputation, and all the no-goodniks would be out to bring me down. What was I to do? David and I talked it through and came to the conclusion that I either had to run, something I was not ready or willing to do, or that I had to get Pussycat to stop coming to see me. This was a daunting prospect, as she could be as fickle as the boss in her moods, and I didn't want to offend her. I would have to approach her carefully, and David and I ran through what I should say hundreds of times, working the bugs out, trying to conceive of every possibility, every iteration of the conversation, how it might go. We went over it again and again until we felt we had it down pat, and then we went over it again and again. After all, this seemed to be my only good choice. I was stuck in bed, still healing. This left me vulnerable to attack in many forms, and now, thanks to my success, I didn't know who I could trust among my compatriots, excepting David. So he and I prepared the battlefield as well as we could. But you know what they say? The first engagement pretty much ruins every plan. And by the time he left, I was still confident I could convince P-Cat to help save my ass. After all, I'd saved hers, hadn't I? Why wouldn't she help me, right? As soon as she walked in the room, I knew I was in trouble. She was wearing one of her special costumes, and it left very little to the imagination. A black bikini top that was little more than a couple of pasties stretched over her ample and shapely breasts, only her nipples covered, a matching bottom, a tiny fur V that was basically a clit warmer, and not much more, that led to a string that quickly disappeared between outrageously round and firm ass cheeks. To complement this non-outfit, she had on calf-high leather boots that accented her incredibly long and perfectly toned legs, and a silver chain that ran around her waist and on the soft swell of her hips to meet on her washboard stomach and attached to a navel piercing. There was another small length of silver chain that led from the belly ring down to a lower piercing covered by that little fur V. Holy hell, I was doomed. I'd always been attracted to her. I mean, you couldn't be a straight man with a pulse and not see that she was super hot. Her usual outfits of tight leather, or if in the field, form-fitting body armor, were very flattering on her. They almost had to be, as she had a nearly perfect body and a classically beautiful face. What she had on now, though, was a whole nother level. My head was swimming, my heart was pounding, and my cock was so hard it hurt. She'd only been in the room for 10 seconds or so, but it felt like a lifetime. I hadn't uttered a word of my carefully prepared speech, and I was already defeated. She'd struck a pose just inside the doorway, hip pushed out and back slightly arched, you know the one, so that she had already her very noticeable ass and tits were accented just that little bit more that made my jaw drop and stole my voice. Along with the sexy and mischievous smile that lit her face up, this triple threat had me stunned. I could tell that was just the reaction she'd been hoping for, as her grin widened and desire erupted in her eyes. Her sex was like a tangible power in the room, and she was loving it. As she broke her pose and stalked forward slowly, I swallowed hard and found my voice. I started to stammer through the beginnings of my speech, laying it all out on the table. I told her how much I enjoyed spending time with her and how attractive I found her. I told her how smart and powerful she was, and that my horrible injuries were a small price to pay to have saved her life. I pleaded with her to please understand the position she was putting me in, and that me asking her to stop coming to see me was the last thing that I wanted, but I felt it was my only hope. I got almost the whole speech out and was about to utter the coup de grace, in which I'd look her right in the eye and beg her to please save my life, pussycat. David and I had figured she wouldn't be able to resist such sentiment from the guy who had saved her life. I took a deep breath, met her gaze straight on, and got ready to deliver my final line. She was standing at the end of the bed, and when I looked in her eyes, they seemed slightly clouded, as if she was distracted by something. I started to speak. Please save my... was as far as I got, as that's when I noticed the slight movement just under the horizon created by the bunched up covers at the end of my bed. Kat saw my eyes drop down along her body, and with an evil smile took a small step backward. This revealed the fingers of her right hand, tracing the short length of chain running from her belly ring to the soft fur-covered V just below. Every few seconds, her first two fingers would slide under this slight piece of fabric and trace swift circular motions on the tender flesh they found there, which each successive circular trip down the chain, her fingers sustained their rubbing and sliding for longer and longer, and as they did, they came out wetter and wetter. Kat's juices glimmering on her nails in the soft fluorescent light of the hospital room. I was, to say the least, transfixed. The end of my speech had died in my throat. All rational thought had ceased, as my entire being was now captured by such a simple thing as Kat's self-pleasure. I felt desire for this woman rise up inside me with such tremendous force that I felt I might explode. Her hand was now firmly stationed at the apex at the end of that small length of silver chain, fingers working furiously back and forth, up and down, in and out. I could hear it then, that soft, squelching sound only achieved by such a sweet and delicate piece of lubricated flesh being punished for pleasure. My gaze rose briefly back to her face, which was twisted by her rising ecstasy, her eyes almost completely closed, slitted so that I could just make out the unfocused lust. She caught me looking at her, and with a wide, evil smile, for just a moment, she saw that she had me, her power, completely, in her power, completely, that I wanted her, and would get in the way of what we both wanted in no way. Our whole lives were focused on that one indomitable action going on beneath that chain, our futures dictated by delicate and simple movement of her fingers. Our lust for each other would find a conclusion, and soon, and be damned with any consequence. As her fingers became ever more animated, Kat began to moan low in her throat. Her other hand started to run up and down between her breasts and then to travel slowly around her nipples. "Oh God, yes," she cried out, her orgasm coming on fast now. She braced herself with her left hand against the bed, her hips pushed forward as she banged away at the clit with wild abandon. On every third or fourth stroke, her fingers, now 3 together instead of 2, shot down and up inside of her as deep as she could manage. I was so hard at that point, my cock throbbed in time with her self-pleasuring. "Oh, fuck God, fuck yeah," she screamed. Her ass shot backwards as she leaned forward over my bed, her tits bouncing in time to the pounding she was giving herself. "Come with me?" she begged, her eyes once again meeting mine. She threw off my covers with her free hand and climbed up on my bed. She stayed on her knees and braced herself with her left arm at a diagonal angle behind her as she leaned back, with her pussy pushed forward and so close to me now I could smell the sweet musk of her sex, her pungent but pleasant pheromones destroying the last of my willpower. I hitched up my hospital gown and brought out my own weapon. Kat's eyes latched onto my blood-filled cock and she licked her lips. I briefly imagined those lips on mine, then somewhere lower. This thought alone almost made me come. I knew that even one stroke of my hand would set myself gushing, so as Kat began the final stage of her masturbation, I only lightly traced my fingers up and down my shaft. I could tell this small thing pushed her over the edge to climax. As her eyes snapped shut, her knees began to shake and her fingers were almost constant blur of motion now, thrusting in and out of her drenched pussy with total abandon. Oh, God, yes, 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 she called out, her back suddenly arching as her orgasm came into being. I slid my hand down over myself once, twice, the pre-cum on the tip of lubricating my efforts and enhancing the intense feeling, 3 times the charm, and as my own orgasm bursts forth and slapped against Kat's belly and tits. And just then, at our finest moment together, the door opened, and in came David with 3 other henchmen. My cock in my hand, my cum on the boss's girlfriend. What could I say? Oh boy. All right, what'd you think of Chapter 7 of The Henchman? That second part, I'll tell you what, a little erotic. It kind of made my pants tight while I was writing it. Of course, I was in lockup at the time, so, didn't have a whole lot but my imagination to work with. Anyway, coming up next, we're going to do the music I promised you. It's a little bit different than the stuff I've played before. It's thrash metal, heavy metal, I don't know what you want to call it, by a band called Mensria. And they toured with Gwar. They've done a lot of stuff. They've been around since 2008. One of their members, Corey, he ended up passing away because of an overdose. Nathan, another one of their members, is working on some really cool new stuff now. You can find them on pretty much anywhere you can find music on the internet. YouTube, friggin' Spotify, iTunes, wherever. So look them up. Give them a chance. Anyway, here it comes. Enjoy it, baby. All right, what'd you think of that? That was, again, Mens Rea and their song Eternal Masochist. Hope you enjoyed it. It was badass. There's no denying that. So that's going to be the end of episode number 7 of Sex, Drugs, and Everything Else. As I promised, episode 8 will be out by Wednesday. I hope you will be looking forward to it. May peace, love, gratitude, and compassion make all your days brighter. Peace.